All right, good afternoon and welcome to the J.A. Dallas Career Speaker Series today. We have a treat for you students today. You're going to get to hear from someone from Toyota, and this is their very first Career Speaker Series. So Chris, they roped you into being the guinea pig, but
Great.
but I'm going to turn it over to you. Introduce yourself and start to share your story with our students.
All right. Well, thank you, Keisha. Really nice to meet all of you, and grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit about my career journey and what I've learned. My name is Chris Singh, and I'm actually going to share my screen here. Let's see. Okay, I think that's there. So, Keisha, is this visible, my desktop?
It is not.
Because I didn't hit the share button. Sorry. There we go.
There we go.
All right. Here. Okay. So really excited to get to speak with all of you. I prepared some content to share. So I certainly remember what it was like being in high school and just the exciting opportunities that awaited to, you have a full landscape available to you to decide what you want to do and where you want to be. At the same time, that can also be very daunting, just to sort of sort through. And I can tell you so far for me, nothing ever really goes as you plan. But I think the important thing is to have a plan, have a vision, and have a goal. So work towards, so that you're always continuing to improve, get better, and eventually land in the spot that will make you happy. So again, excited to be part of the virtual career speaker series here today. I myself participated in junior achievement when I was growing up. I remember having guest speakers come, and just a fun memory for me when I was in elementary school. The speaker asked, "Where does everyone want to live when they grow up?" And so I can tell you the one place no one wanted to live was Dallas. But here I am, about several years later on, and this is where I want to be, and I'm really excited to be in this metroplex. So with that, I'll get started here. Let's see, hopefully this advances. Okay, so I'm just going to share a little bit about me. I'm going to start on this left quadrant, right? So I am a tech consultant with Toyota, and I'll explain where it involves quite a few different spaces. So the first thing here I wrote is around really owning the dealership experience. So you can imagine when you go to Walmart or Target or any retail facing outlet, that whole experience is designed and crafted. And so I work on the technology end, deciding what the human user interfaces are like, and how to really make that the best experience for customers entering into a Toyota dealership. And so I wrote a couple other facets here. E-commerce, right? So many of you probably have shopped on Amazon or some other sort of e-commerce portal, but again, that intersection between the customer, an e-commerce site, and our dealers, what that interaction looks like, and how is that made to be the best experience. I've got here IT management, so information technology. So obviously any business or organization has a number of just platforms and digital platforms that are used to keep it running and operational. So that's a space that I oversee as well. And then just within Toyota, right, within our organization, figuring out how do we optimize our operations? How do we become efficient and effective, become true leaders, and great at what we do, right? So you can think of in your high schools, right, you have an administration staff that makes sure your schools are ran in the best capacity and shape possible, right? So part of my job is looking internally as well to make sure that we're aligned and effective. So that's a little bit about my role today. So I just put a couple other things, right? I've got these arrows that kind of make me my career. So I did do my formal education was from UT Austin and Cornell. I studied engineering, biomedical engineering. So that's was sort of the foundation for me in pursuing a career in tech. And then just a couple personal things. I do, like to travel. I put a couple places that I've been to. This is the Forbidden City in Beijing, China, and I've got the Colosseum in Rome. But I do enjoy, globe trekking, and hopefully one day when we can do it in a safer and sustainable way, I look forward to doing that. But I still think there's still opportunities to explore other cultures and immerse in, different spaces, even when you're at home. And I think quarantine or COVID has been an opportunity to do that, to explore in a more local way. I am a Big Sisters mentor for Lone Star for the state of Texas. This is my first year, and that's been a really great opportunity. I'm in the Mentor 2.0 program with Irving High School, and so get to interact with my mentee and just see how different some things are from when I was in high school, and how some things are pretty still the same. Still some of the same challenges and experiences and interests and things like that. And then I don't consider myself an athlete, never have been, but as far as a fitness activity of choice, it would be running. And after getting vaccinated, that was the one thing I actually was most excited to do, is to actually get back to a gym safely and train and get back into that. So that's a little bit about me. Again, kind of who I am today. So I do want to talk to you about a career journey. And when I was your age, I never really interacted with anyone that really explained to me what a career path is and what career journeys are like. We talked a lot about careers. Do you want to do, something in engineering, medicine, the humanities, but never what a career trajectory was like. And I didn't start getting exposure to that till I started actually working. The funny thing is, at this vantage point, it's was nothing like what I was told, to say the least. And I think that's reflective of just the current environment that we're in, just with technology becoming more broadly available, and the necessity for deeper expertise, and so on and so forth. So I'll just kind of start you through here. I'm sorry. Before I get to the career journey part, actually, I'm just going to talk a couple things about how did I get into this role that I'm in, this retail technology consultant role. So I mentioned my background, right? I did STEM, and then my early career experiences was in software. So I got interested in software application development, and so that's kind of the space and where I built my foundational skill sets in. And then in continuing education, right? So even after you graduates high school, graduate college, the reality is you're going to have to continue some sort of formal training or education, continue to take classes. And so for me, I did mine in management. And so that's what my role, as I mentioned before, really offers, is an opportunity in a management role. And then finally here, my desired location. I lived in the Midwest for about 6 years, and that was a really interesting opportunity to see that part of the country. But I'm a native Texan. I grew up in the Dallas suburbs, and knew long-term that I wanted to settle and live here in the Metroplex. So yeah, I mean, these four facets are really kind of how I ended up, the reason why I'm in this role that I'm in today, and why it's interested me and appealed to me, is sort of the combination of these things. So I mentioned career pivots, right? So I just want to talk you through. So I started my career actually as a systems engineer. I studied biomedical engineering in college and thought I was going to spend the rest of my life working on medical devices. So surgery drills. At GE, they made medical imaging equipment. So if any of your family members have gotten a CT scan or MRI, I was in the GE division that built those. So started my career there in a rotational program. Many of you will likely do that coming out of college. It's almost like an apprenticeship. So it gives you a chance to kind of learn the organization, learn the business, and build out some skill sets to work there. So I spent my first part of my career, 2 years, doing that. But then when those 2 years were up and it was like, okay, time to get a full-time role, all the opportunities were actually in software. And I think that was really galvanized by the need to compete with Apple at the time, Google, and many industries had sort of focused on that core competency of software development. And so those were the opportunities that were available to me as an engineer. So that's what I pursued. I pursued a software engineering role and did that for 1.5 years. And I have C++ here because that was the language that we wrote in, was C++. And so that was a really deep and deep learning experience for me. Probably the deepest that I've had. Just coming in and really foundational everything I've done since then. After that, someone in my network reached out to me. They had seen kind of my work here as a systems engineer and recognized some skill sets that would help me be sort of also, saw the, let's see, how do I say it? The sort of interest level in sort of being a higher level thinker and thinking holistically about engineering development, right? So they reached out to me with this product ownership role. And so that was the next career step for me. It was really, really neat to come in and own a product. And I own software products to guided how they were built and designed and how did they meet customer needs, and really leveraged my tech background to do that effectively. So after that, I decided, okay, I'm in the business kind of role now, sort of straddling between technology and business. I want to get in management. I want to do my MBA. And so I also looked at that opportunity to come back to Texas. I had been up until this point in Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee at that GE site. I knew I wanted to live long-term in Texas. So began my MBA and interned as a finance intern, as a senior financial analyst. Coming out of this industrial engineering space, I was trying to figure out like where do I go next? And there's Dallas is not like a big manufacturing footprint necessarily. That might change in the future, but a lot of financial services in this market. And so I wanted to try. I interviewed for investment banks and ended up at Toyota Financial Services in an analyst role, and did that as part of my graduate internship. Soon after, I was like, I need a job, I need to work, I need income, and ended up actually at Baylor as a senior application engineer, going back to my tech IT work that I had done in my career in supply chain, and did this for 10 months, but really just wanted to, felt like I could still better apply what I was doing with my MBA and technology degrees, technology experience, and applied to the role that I'm in today at Toyota, and got that position and offer. And yeah, that really got through this. But through each of these phases, it was a learning curve. And my takeaway for this is everyone talks about the career ladder, but at Toyota we talk about a lattice. By the way, forgive my bad grammar here. I just realized this should be a period. This is a full sentence. So. Yeah, it's a lattice, and I think that's reflective of, and lattice is like a matrix, right? So everyone thinks you just go straight up, but it's really, there's a bunch of different paths and different intersections and crossways, right? So like I said, for me, up until this point, it's been a lot of deep learning. Certainly not something any of these I planned for and said, oh, I'm going to do X. It's definitely not something that was sequential for me. It was based on the opportunities that were available, and just trying to see where I best fit and where I could best apply my skill sets and make a contribution. And so finally, okay, I'll tell you what my career's taught me so far. So the first, remain a lifelong learner. So for those of you in high school right now that might think, oh, I just can't wait to be done. The reality is, in the world that we live in today, and with so many things scaling, there's just a need for more and more, like I said, deep learning. And so that's going to be really important for you to remain a lifelong learner. Maybe not necessarily formally in a classroom setting, but to keep finding interest and to keep exploring new frontiers. The second here thing I wrote was embrace uncertainty. I think that certainly happened quite a few times throughout my career. I wasn't sure, you know, if I was doing the right thing. Was I in the right place? Is this where I really want to end up, 10 to 15 years from now? But I think I always try to keep in my mind, it's about just keep moving your one foot forward ahead of the other, right? So even though things might seem like, where is this going? Where does this going to pan out? I think just being able to, like I said, get up each day and to keep moving somewhere in some direction will help you get through that. But also recognizing that it's okay not to know. I think in our culture, right, we Google everything. And we know, within a second what the answer to something is, but there are certain moments that you won't. And that's okay. And learning to embrace that is part of the journey. Finally, do the hard, not the impossible thing. When I was in high school, my dad, I thought I was doing, I was taking these AP classes, and my dad told me to take a computer science class. And that was not a popular course, I didn't know many friends that did that. But that ended up being one of the most important classes, if not the most, that I took in high school, because it prepared me for engineering. And as an engineer doing engineering school, you look around and it seems like sometimes people have more free time. Maybe they enjoyed college life a little more than I did. But at the end of it, I think doing the hard thing is sometimes important, not the impossible. And I wrote that you don't want to set yourself up for failure or do something that just you have no means of achieving. But some of my early roles, like that software engineering role, certainly wasn't easy. It was very difficult. But the learning that I came out of that with really was foundational for everything else that I did. And I can look back on that and be glad that I did it. And then I think finally here, I will say, just in my career today, people remember most how you made them feel, not what you did. And I say that because in your career, you guys are in high school as well, right? We're evaluated with grades and metrics and goals. And we get sort of bogged down in our day-to-day focused on that, right? But when people look back, and even when they're thinking about you for a future opportunity, I think what stands out is how much of a person were you, right? How did you treat them? I'm a big believer in karma as well. So what you do comes back to you. But that's also something that's always what stands out in our minds, right? Again, our day to day is we've got to do certain things to meet a benchmark. But in the future, when people look back at you, they'll remember you for how you made them feel. So being compassionate, and I've got this graphic here, help others along. One of my earliest mentors always told me it's about bringing people along, right? So regardless of what you know and can do, it's about how well can you bring people with you. And so that to date is what stood out in my career, and it's been kind of, I'd say, probably the single most important thing in hiring decisions as well. When looking for new opportunities, is how do people feel about you? Be your authentic self, and that's about all I have to share for now. So thank you for your time. Thanks for listening. And I'll save time for any questions or feedback anyone has, comments. I'd be glad to hear. I think Keisha, you mentioned.
Yeah. So I've dropped some questions in the chat for you that have come from the YouTube channel and the student chat.
All right, let me. Okay, let's see. There they are. Okay. A job to make medical stuff. Okay, all right. So the first question is about a job to make medical stuff. Okay, yeah. So I would say, there's all kinds of medical things, right? So considered a medical device, right? So we've got the big MRI, CT image, ultrasound scanners, but even medical equipment like, tongue depressors or bandages, right? Those are probably more materials driven, right? So I would tell you that it's not one specific major required to make medical things. Some things are really chemistry based, or and a degree in like chemical engineering or chemistry, biochemistry might be more suited for that. Lab tests. I worked in a lab um, uh, doing like immunoassays, right? And that was really biochemistry focused. But so there's not one single degree that prepares you to do like make all sorts of medical things. It just depends on what medical devices are being built, right? Will require that discipline. Sometimes it's electrical engineering. I did biomedical, which is pretty broad, but a little more imaging focused around the science and algorithms used to build those. But yeah, it's a broad space, and I think just about every discipline, STEM discipline, can be applied to making that. Let's see. I thought Vegas was the forbidden city. Oh, okay. Actually, so maybe, but actually, so the reason why Beijing is called the Forbidden City is because let's see if I can go back, during Imperial China, only the emperor and his officials were allowed in the Forbidden City. So if you were a commoner or not of a noble, I guess, background, you resided in the outside. So yeah, that's where the name Forbidden City comes from in Beijing. But yeah, that's centuries old, and it's a pretty historic landmark. Can you work at a good job without a highest master degree? Absolutely, absolutely. We hire for roles at Toyota where a degree is not required. Sometimes it's just relevant experience. And I wouldn't say to get a master's degree for the sake of getting a master's degree. I don't think that I'd recommend that either. If you were to pursue one, make sure that it's in a field or it's related to what you kind of know. So my advice for a master's degree is to get your bachelor's so that you get your foot in the door at a company and really understand what interests you and what motivates you, what looks applicable, and then pick your master's level concentration in that. I've seen that work out really successfully for people who, like me, started out as biomedical engineering, then went to work at GE and was like, oh, I'm really interested in power electronics. I want to do a master's in electrical engineering. That's more fitting, right? So yeah, definitely not necessary, but I think the people that pursue master's degrees, they just want to specialize more in their field of interest. Which job was your favorite? Okay, so my favorite job was probably to date. So the job role I've been in today, I love it. It's just that I was hired in during COVID, so we've been remote the entire time. So it's tough to, it's certainly not the same being in the office remotely. I think my favorite job was this one as a product owner. I got to travel to India 5 times in the span of 2 years. And I, did treks to the Taj Mahal. I did a desert safari, but I just really enjoyed going there and really breaking through any sort of cultural barriers and building trust, mutual trust between, as a team. I think that was really interesting because we'd work remotely over the phone, we're 12 hours apart. But that was really a unique opportunity. And I got to define that role as well in the organization. So it was really fun. Were you scared you're going to lose your job from COVID? There was a little uncertainty. So actually during COVID, I was in this senior application engineer role. And so I did, remember hearing on the news, my employer was Baylor at the time, and they were looking to, they were going to have to, to terminate employees. And the economics of that, right? So what happened, you would think in a healthcare system, they're in healthcare, it's fine. But what ended up happening to us at Baylor is that the cost of PPE rose astronomically, right? We were sourcing from China, the Middle East, and the prices for getting masks, things like that were, extraordinary and impacting profitability. So the company had to cut costs in another spot. I wasn't actually that scared of losing my job here because of the application I owned. It was pretty critical to actually getting supplies through the hospitals, and I was the only person that was trained to do it. So it was it was an essential role. It was really surreal. It was like $2 billion worth of medical equipment for treating COVID, was at my fingertips, like flowing through. And so I was the person in charge for keeping that going. So it was almost like an essential role. So I wasn't really really concerned about losing, my job at during COVID. I think the greater challenge, though, that what I was concerned at is when I started looking to apply to Toyota and things like that, I was like, okay, I'm not sure what if companies are really going to be hiring or looking for the kind of role that I wanted. I think that was the bigger concern, because I wanted to get back into, apply my MBA and get into a management strategic role. I didn't know if those opportunities were going to be available during COVID. But at Toyota, right, they were trying to accelerate. Actually, COVID pushed them to accelerate their online presence, so they needed people to fill those roles. So yeah, COVID was a weird, interesting spot. What made you decide to go to UT? I'm trying to decide if I want to go there. Okay. I hope that you decide to make a better decision with a better framework than I did. So what drove me to UT, candidly speaking, was I knew that it was a really great school for engineering. I knew it was top ranked, and that's what really led me to apply. My dad went to Texas A&M, and I think culturally I didn't think it really fit for me. So UT was it. But looking back, I would have definitely considered a lot more than just how a school performs or ranks, right? I think when you apply for your bachelor's, you really want to maximize your learning environment and opportunity and success. And so that's something you really kind of want to look for most in your undergraduate institution is, can you thrive and learn well in that setting? At UT, if you're in a chemistry class like I was, there's 500 students. You're sitting in an auditorium. You don't know you have any interaction with your professor unless you go out of your way. Flip side, I went to a small private school for my MBA. I went to SMU, and that was very in person, right? And that learning experience was really unique. So I wouldn't say get too caught up on how a school is perceived, but really just try to make sure it's going to be maximize your learning potential, whatever institution that you choose. And obviously there's things like financial factors as well. My parents weren't going to pay for me to go to school. That was out of the question, or going out of state. They were, they had saved for me to attend a public school within state. So that narrowed it for me. And, I just thought UT was a good school. But yeah, looking back, I would consider a couple other factors as well. You really want to make sure that you feel like you're gonna thrive and be comfortable and be happy with where you go. Okay, I think that's it, Keisha. I think I got through them.
You did. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for spending time with us today. And so happy to hear that you're a JA alum. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You just let the right person hear it, because now I got to call you after this.
All right. Yeah. Oh, and I have volunteered as well at elementary school as well for JA. So I've taught classes too.
Well, that's fantastic. Again, thank you so much. I think the students really enjoyed it. I'm still chuckling on I thought Vegas was the forbidden city.
Yeah. That's a new one. I got to, I haven't been to Vegas myself. So I might need to, that's a new one for me. But
yeah, I think that's, those are those Vegas vacation commercials that say.
All right. Yeah. You're very,
so we could tell Vegas that that's good marketing.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, thanks, Chris. We will see you next time. We appreciate you. Students.
Thank you, Keisha. Yeah, and to all the students, best wishes. Hang in there.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Bye.
Bye-bye.